Hey Gwenters, and welcome back for a little bit different episode of Gone Gwenting. We've got a new background here. My son has strewn his books all over the other end, so we're going to be working with the beautiful door as our backdrop instead of our wonderful bookcase. And it's glasses time. I usually wear contacts, but it's later tonight when I'm filming this video, so let's just jump right into it. So today I want to cover a video that, might get a lot of flack, and that's fine. But I think it's time that we covered some Greatsword consistency, a Greatsword deck. Now, I think the biggest reason for everyone to watch this video is to understand and to dissect how a consistent Greatsword deck works, what I fear most as a Greatsword consistency player, what I don't want you to do, and then also how you can win with this deck. And I think all of those are really important for a couple of reasons. One, if you want to play as Skellige, which everyone is heralding as the greatest meta and the best team right now, then you can go ahead and jump in and do that. But two, I've had a lot of comments from people on my All Out Charge version 2.0 deck, and most of the comments I hear from people and most of the tweaks they want to make, I think, to me, evince a lack of understanding of how specifically this Skellige deck works. Now, there are some other iterations of Skellige going on right now. They have pros and cons. Personally, I think this is the best deck. Some people might argue with me about Mask of Oribos, but I think with this change where it now includes a crow for a 2-point play and you get the card in hand, it makes it a lot better. And it's draw a card then discard, which I think is the best way for these to work. So it's basically like Curse Scroll plus. You do have to discard the card, but for me that works for great thinning purpose as well. And usually there's one of the cards I don't want. So let's walk through this too, though. I've seen some other videos talking about how Wild Boar is better than Trigvi. I totally think that's true. I think if you can, I would switch out maybe Hemdall for Trigvi. But I really like Wild Boar. I definitely think you should keep Wild Boar. It plays really well with Harald the Cripple, because he does this random damage to an enemy unit, ignoring its armor. Again, I will say I think that of all the things that should have changed, this probably would be one of the biggest things. I think people take this for granted, but that random damage underneath armor is pretty brutal. I think other things here, Skjall was basically the downgrade a lot of people did. You can use Skjordal instead as a different card that people are using. Skjordal is a great removal card. You get 3 points of removal round 1, 4 points of removal round 2, and 5 points of removal in round 3. He's a good play from the grave card just to wipe somebody off. Personally, it's getting middling use from him. I think the Trigvi Rupture Threaten at a minimum is really good. It forces them to play a Purify or a different card, and if it's the penultimate play or the second to last play of the game, you can usually delete the card, often because they've saved something else up. So I really do like Trigvi, but I hear other people saying they don't as much. He also plays for 6 points on the board for your side in round 3. So this veteran status is really important, and it's really important for understanding what I fear as a Skellige player, right? I get more points on my side of the board the longer we go into this game. I think if you want to beat a Skellige team, you've got to outpace them in round 3, which is the entire purpose of All Out Charge 2.0, with the banishes to keep these people out of the graveyard. And I also think you could also alternatively, and I think this works really well with elf decks, just 2-0 a Skellige deck, where you just play really high tempo round 1, you do some really good removals, and then you play another high tempo round in round 2 and just push them out of the game and get the W. I think it works better if you are trying to out-tempo them on red coin than if you're on blue coin. I think it's a little hard to deal with Skellige when they're on red coin, and I do hear that concern. But again, the All Out Charge version 2.0 deck is, for me, virtually flawless when I play it right. But Skjall is just good points on the board. I find he's a really good round 2 player to get you out of sticky situations. Herkia is really good. This passive damage is fantastic. I like to play with 2 Greatswords. I think it improves consistency. It gives me more options. It also helps me so I can play one early in round 3 without having to worry about the loss. Then Drummond Berserkers and Oncrate and Moonlight Longships together with my favorite Haymay Protector is ultimate point play. I had shot a previous video that I wasn't able to post in time before the hotfix, but it went through like the detailed math of how many points this is worth. Like basically here, all the points he loses, this the Haymay Protector gets back, which is 3. So Haymay goes to 7, he flips to 6. That's 13 points on the board already for 9 provisions. Plus he's done 3 damage, presumably. I mean, if it hits armor, that stinks, but if it doesn't, it usually doesn't, you've also done 3 damage. So it's a 16-point play next to a Haymay Protector for only 9 provision points, which I think this card is just really underappreciated. I think of all the things you want to talk about that Skellige lucked out on, this is number 1. I actually think I would be okay and I would feel comfortable with this going to 6 provisions. I just think at least it's random damage, but I definitely think I would be certainly okay with that. Then Oncrate Longship sets up for Wild Boar really well. So anyway, this is kind of really detailed in here. Oncrate Raiders are an easy mulligan for me in round 1. They work well with Mask of Urbos to toss them in. They're good. Like if your Greatswords get banished, they're decent to pull out. Otherwise I don't love them. I mean, they play for 6 plus 2, so they are like an 8-point play. 5 provisions, but they're kind of fodder for me. Then Stunning Blows, good removal, but I really love this Trophy Catch. A lot of cards are playing big, wide rows. Fire Swarm being number 1, Ethereal being another one, Northern Realms with Carrack Frigates being another, Elves being another. I mean, there's a lot of row stacking that's going on with minimal row punish because of people loving Devotion. I think especially the Devotion here with Harald with that passive damage is really good, but other decks do like that Devotion as well, so I think it plays well. And then Blood Eagle gets you this consistency. So Blood Eagle I think is really, really good. This Bloodthirst gives you some flexibility, and those warships really help you get that. But playing a warrior of 7 or less gets you from Skjal down. So you can play Skjal, Herkia, Oncrate Greatsword, Damoon Berserker, Oncrate Warcrier, Oncrate Raiders, and Haymay Protector as well. Other people are doing the Armorer as a play, and I think this is actually a pretty decent, not Armory. I think it might be Armor Smith. Nope. Don't worry, we're gonna get there. Oh, it's Blacksmith. That's why. Got the wrong thing in my mind. Blacksmith. So Oncrate Blacksmith here. It gets charges every time you play a warrior. This deck is obviously very warrior heavy. And then it boosts an allied unit by 1. So really good. Really recommend that one. Can do a lot of good for you. But I like this deck. I like the ships with the Wild Boar. I think that this deck is just more flexible than others. But you can go all in on warriors, and he makes a good play when you go all in on warriors. The Twerseek Invader goes up to 7 points because it's veteran by final round with Veil, so kind of really similar in my opinion to the NL Conqueror from Monsters. But I like the NL Conqueror a little bit more for that deck, especially since you can play it at 7 points in round 1 when you cannot do that with the Twerseek Invader. So for me, she falls a little bit flat. But let's jump into a game, walk you through some of the gameplay on this. But like I said, I love this deck. I think it's a total riot. It is not foolproof. It is not, in my opinion, it is not OP. You know, it just pressures some things that you couldn't pressure before. And it's just a bunch of fun, and let's just get out there and have some fun. But more than anything, you got to play this deck so you can understand how it works, so you can understand how to beat it. If you really are distressed, if it really bothers you, if you think that it needs to be put in its place and you just hate it every day, then rethink your strategy a little bit. So this is actually one of my favorite plays. Get the Moonlight Longships out here with Haymay Protector, just a bunch of points, and it's good to just sit out here. Stunning Blow is good removal personally. I don't love it as much as I would like a Berserker, but I got a lot of golds here, so I'm gonna have to think pretty hard about how deep I want to go into this round. But I think that this should give us enough pressure. So one thing I will say about Skellige, they love Final Say. Like I think, like other decks like Final Say. Like it's really helpful. Bloody Baron is a really good example. Bloody Baron is nice to play on an Osril. But with, I think like especially with like Morkvarg, having Last Say is just incredibly important for a Skellige. And some decks you can kind of give it up, others not. So almost always I'll play these light longships first, unless I have an on-crate longship. Just because like if they get removed, it's not the end of my life. It's certainly not the end of my game, but they're good patient play. You can pull off these damages when you're ready. Just go ahead and let them line these cards up, and then just do whatever makes do whatever is gonna work for you. Parian Phantom, I think, is the best of like these new cards. I like Eggmoon, but he can get moved off the row. But like even if you move a Parian Phantom, it doesn't do this 3 damage anymore. But it continues to boost itself, and that really helps with some of these taller decks. So I actually play Heimei here. Oh, I don't know why it's doing a weird thing right there. So just so we can, in case this Parian Phantom decides to go out to this light longship, but we just kind of line this up. Get the light longship set up. It's a slower play. We get to kind of react to whatever he's doing, and then we'll drop down a Greatsword. We might even do Dagger this round. But basically, the way you want to think is you need to have. I bet he removes this protector. Yep. You want / need to have as many. And the perfect number of cards in your graveyard. And the perfect number of cards is usually 1, maybe 2 on-crate Greatswords, and then like 1 gold. And that's perfect setup, and you can do a 1-2 punch in the final round. It's very similar to All Out Charge actually in that regard. So here we actually just want to get one of these damaged. We're gonna just go ahead and pull out a Heimei Protector. It's gonna play for yeah, it's gonna play for the most points between both of these boats. And we're just gonna start paying off some damage here. You could have Parasite as a good removal. So when each of these are damaged, if you haven't played Wild Boar, you play it to melee, and it's a deploy, and it's gonna damage all enemy units by 1, then damage all enemy units by 1 again. So for each one of these that's damaged, it's going to actually do 2 damage to each of them. And the important thing about Greatswords and Dagger is it's the instances. It's not the value of damage, it's the number of times they are damaged. So Wild Boar is fantastic because it's going to go ping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instances of damage, but actually it'll do these 2 first. So it'll actually be 7 instances of damage that it will get on this row alone. Which is 7 points that he loses. But for me, I think even more importantly is gonna be, oh man. So he's gonna use Karen to try to get these off because he knows I want to play Wild Boar. But we've got time. We can play. And I'm fine using up these charges. A lot of people play this Karen with like a Detlef, Higher Vampire. Stack up the points. But anyway, so each of those points of damages he's going to lose in points, and then my Greatswords are going to get, if they're on ranged row, they're going to get the points for each of those instances of damage. And Dagor, who I think, in my opinion, is like the true MVP of Skellige, and I know a lot of people don't include him, but if you're playing with Wild Boar, in my opinion, you gotta play with Dagor in a long round, because he's going to get boosted for each instance of damage on both rows. So he's just gonna feed so much points to himself, and they're gonna lose that many points. So basically, every instance of damage you do is a 2-point switch instead of just a 1-point switch, right? So now he's got this set up where he can basically just pass, which is fine. So I think we'll go for a Greatsword. Another thing I'd say here too is, yeah, let's actually just get the damage. I want the damaged units more with Wild Boar. The other thing I'd say here too is just setting up your graveyard is useful in and of itself, because this leader ability is useless if you don't have anything to grab. So you also know that a quick 3 and out round is actually kind of annoying to a Skellige player. So if you're playing All Out Charge or another deck like that, going quick 3 and out can be really frustrating for them, especially since, like with this deck, the light long ships are really slow play. I need to get the Heimei out, I need to get the Greatsword out, and if I don't get them out, then it doesn't do me a whole lot of good. That's kind of a big bet there. So I think we've seen, so there's Phantom. Alright, I gotta count this up real quick. So he's gonna go to, so he goes up by 3 points every turn. So that's important to keep in mind. Until I play Wild Boar of the Sea. So he is going to lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 points. And then, so he'll go down to 38. And I would go up by 9 points. Plus 4, so 16. So it wouldn't be quite enough with Wild Boar. So I have to make a tough decision here of, do I want to commit the dagger? And I think honestly I do. I think he's probably out of really good removal here. And I think that will be enough points to get me a W. He's out of consume charges. And I think the other thing that I have going for me, worst case scenario, it's going to be a two card play. But I actually, the other benefit we have here is if he decides to keep playing, we could actually win on evens, which would be just devastating as a Monsters player. Okay, so we're going to do damage for each of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. He goes down from 52 to 39. Remember that, 15. So we go up to 32 as well, plus this 4 and this 1 damage here. So we actually are going to be perfectly fine right here. And do you see? I mean, watch this reversal in points. Isn't this just insane? So now we'll have to play one more card. Herrikia has really good passive damage. I don't want to play Morkvarg. I think he plays really well in case he wants to go for Igern. But there's also a chance that he decides not to. And it looks like here I made this poor mistake where I'm going to have to play a card next turn anyway, because I miscounted. So do your maths. That's all I can tell you. So, but we do have this Greatsword. We're gonna have Dagger and Wild Boar in our graveyard, so I'd like to keep the Greatsword, and I'll keep. I actually think Morkvarg is not going to be as useful because it's very likely I don't get final play. So, bad choices. Your maths. Let's see what we can grab. Okay. This is fine. Alright, so because we went down a card, I'm actually going to pressure him this round. Could be kind of dumb normally, but I don't know how much of an option we have here. Nah, we'll go ahead and pass. We will go ahead and pass. It would not surprise me to see an Igern come down just to consume something from my graveyard, either at the beginning of this turn or next. A lot of people just like to eat that Morkvarg. If you're gonna choose though, I would eat the wild boar, just as an FYI. But we spent kind of all of our big plays. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna have to reshoot this. Almost certainly. Don't be stupid. You know you want. Alright, cool. So, Ethereal is often a decent play, as we saw first round, but I think here actually it does not benefit him very much, and I'll walk you through why. We're gonna go ahead and play Harold. I think most of his removal is gone. We've seen Parasite, we've seen Striga. There's a decent chance he's playing a 4-point removal, but we're gonna get those points back. If we play Harold, he's gonna pull somebody from our graveyard. We're gonna go ahead and drop that Greatsword on the front row, and he goes up to 5 points because every time you play a warrior, you damage an enemy unit by 1, ignoring its armor. So, as long as this Greatsword sticks, we're gonna get a bunch of points from a wild boar play, which he's kind of just walked right into really early on again. And if he decides to kind of go for the consume here, which is, you know, a choice he can make, we'll let him do that, and then we'll just use Trigvi and erase it. And there's just not a whole lot he can do. So we'll drop Herke here. She does 1 random damage at the end of every turn. That way when we drop down this next Greatsword, even if he puts something on ranged row, we're going to have a 4 out of 5 chance to proc the damage twice on this row. And now that he's spawned this, unless he does a consume. Oh, Ruhin, okay. So Ruhin's kind of fun. I think he's a bit tall, especially when you know that a lot of people love Skellige. I probably wouldn't go for the Ruhin card just because he's an 11-point card. I mean, he keeps coming back, but you're going to build a bunch of really tall cards that you might not actually want to build. So we're going to go for both Greatswords, and we're just going to let them do that. Again, we have a 5 out of 6 probability that damage from Herke is going to proc. This damage from Harold's going to proc every time we hit that row. So now the next question is, looking in here, what do we want? Probably this Drummond Berserker. We could get these on-crate Raiders, though. I mean, they're going to boost up by 5 turns. But this guy gets damage that's worth 6 points. So that's a little bit better delta for us. And I think we'll go ahead and put him on ranged row. Random damage goes. Once again, it hits the front row. We get Drummond Berserker playing the random damage. And because our grab here is not 7 points, he's not an 8 provision or a 9 provision or an 11 provision card, we don't have to kill a unit. And in fact, we don't want to kill a unit. We want to just continue letting this row grow. And then we can use that wild boar to just delete all these guys. Question will be, when do we want to drop down Trigvi? A lot of people running a monsters will just hold on to a consume card, but that can ruin their final play. And so we're just going to kind of probably hold on to Trigvi as our final play as well. There's no reason for us to get really anxious with it. The Slizzard could eat one of these every turn. Notably could eat a damaged one. Probably would be a smart choice for him, but that's fine with us right now. So we're going to go for these on-crate Raiders. Well, actually, we get 3 damage. Yeah, that's fine. Let's do that now. He doesn't have dominance right now, which is important, so the Vargists can't use those consumes. Right, unfortunate that we wiped one off. That would have been nice to have that 2 damage. Would have been better for it to proc either on these ethereals or on this lizard. So here comes something else. And he also gets stuck into this position where he has to do this consume. This is really, that could have been really bad if he didn't consume with this lizard, because it would get transformed. So it's important when you are playing against ethereal. So if we had like trophy catch here, if we had this card in hand, you could actually just like swing this Ruhin down and it would get flipped into an ethereal, never to come back from the graveyard ever again. Because it's not dead, it's been transformed, which is an important difference. We're at 15, so I think we're okay. If this consumes a 4, we'll be fine. But let's go ahead and get down our other Berserker, just because, again, this is more points so long as it hits that melee row. And the percentage chance has gone down a little bit, but it's still pretty good. And it did actually hit for us. So I think that's basically overcome the War Crier in terms of points right there. Now here, I think actually we're going to go ahead and play Skjall. He gets final play, so we can go ahead and play this Trigby first. So even with my terrible choices, we might actually still pull this off. And the reason we'll play Skjall, he's a little slow. I think he's used most of his removal, so I'm not worried about this. So the important thing with Skjall, you know, he's really similar to some of these other 10 point for 7 provision cards where, you know, they have some trigger where they destroy self. His is 5 damage though, so unlike Greater Brothers, which is 4, I mean, they can like rebuild their armor, but his is only 5. And it's armor for Greater Brothers too, so there's other cards that can kind of just like remove that armor. Ooh, Igni. That's the other thing I'd say too. Nobody's stopping you from putting Igni in your deck. Put Igni in your deck. We'll go ahead and drop Skjall here. So I think if I was him, and you know that Trigby is a possible play here, I think I'd be really concerned about getting that consume on this other Slizzard or something of the like. But it looks like he's not going to choose to do that. So we do have a chance of killing off this guy with this damage, but I think it's still probably the right choice. Right, we did get one extra one here, so that did work out for us. And then I think I just go for the biggest unit here, no reason not to. And then Wild Boar is most points, and he surrendered. So look, I was actually gonna like reshoot this footage because like this isn't how the deck should be made. You know, I'm always about showing you guys honest videos, but I want to show you honestly how it should be played. If you want to watch totally pure honest videos, my Twitch is up. Please check it out in the description. But look, this is basically how you'd play this deck. I think trying to bleed me out round 1 was a decent strategy. When Skellige gets back behind, they don't get last say. It can be problematic. But be careful of your row stacking. Honestly, if I was him, I would have bled me dry in round 2. He had some decent cards there. He would know I would be very unlikely to use Morkvarg, Heart of Terror, or Wild Boar of the Sea with my leader ability in second round. That would really crunch me. So I think that was probably his biggest mistake. This deck probably could have beat me had he played just a little smarter. And I think that's honestly my opinion as kind of parting advice is just be thoughtful about what the other person wants to play. And don't be so concerned with getting your game out the way that you want it. And I think that if you play that and you watch this and you think about it and you play Skellige some, you'll find that they're good, but they're certainly not invincible. And why they are kind of running the gamut as the most meta OP team right now, I honestly don't think that that's true as long as you make some quick changes to your deck. Sure, you're going to lose some devotion options like the spying package with Nilfgaard, But really, are you going to complain about a faction that has Vincent and Yen's Invocation and Tourney Joust and Bribery and Skellen and Damien Delatour? You're going to complain about that faction not having it? If you really want to complain, then you got to complain about the factions that got really virtually no love, like Scoia'tael. I mean, Symbiosis is pretty trash this season. Not a lot it can do. It feeds Wild Boar, just as we saw. I mean, it does get some boost, which makes it so they can't proc damage twice, but they feed into Morkvarg when they get too much boost. So, and they're just really weak against Northern Realms, as we've seen. The biggest plays that are going out right now are really the elf packages that we're seeing, that are mostly replays of last season's cards, with the addition maybe of Oniromancy, right? So, which everybody can get. But I think, like I said, and like you've seen in my all-out charge video, there is a way to beat this deck every time. No questions asked. And that same all-out charge deck has gotten me the best MMR, the best win rate against all factions that I've ever had. Again, it always runs into problems with Nilfgaard because everyone runs into problems with Nilfgaard. If you're playing Nilfgaard, you've seen how this deck works. You've seen what I fear most. Use Amnesty. Use Yen's Invocation. Add a Squirrel or Xavier Lemons in. Banish some more stuff from my graveyard. I'd be totally out of luck. I got nothing left. And you have Tourney Jousts or Assassinations. Those are going to remove my Greatswords. They often get played to the end of a row because they're either played early or people just don't think about that. Go ahead and use Assassination and remove a 5-point card. I mean, there's just so many things that you can do as Nilfgaard to erase that. And I think I've seen like 2 decks that I've come across that run Grimace. There's no Purifies. Use Poison. Use Ball. I mean, there's just so many options on how you beat this deck. Just be a little bit more strategic about it, and I think you'll find that it's actually pretty well balanced right now. Again, if you disagree, please leave a comment. If you like this video, if you want to see more, please leave a like. Please subscribe. It really means a lot to me when you guys get engaged. Let me know what you think. And I love the challenges. I've had many different players, many people in this community come to me and say, hey, Gone Gwenting, can you please make an Inspired Zeal deck? Or, hey, I tried your all-out charge deck, but I don't have Donamir. How else can I make a Northern Realms deck that can be competitive and get me up to pro this season? That's what I thrive on. I love making the decks. I love being thoughtful in this game. I think, as we've all found, that you can have a lot of fun. And my last piece of advice here is a really, really good deck has a win rate above 55%, right? So if you lose a few games in a row, maybe you just lost a few games in a row. You aren't looking for a perfect record. You're just looking for a deck that wins more than it loses, especially when you get to pro. Now, it gets really depressing when you lose multiples in a row, but it's really exhilarating when you win multiples in a row. It's just like flipping a coin. And if the deck is coming up really bad, all it's coming up tails, maybe it's time to switch it up. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Talk to you later. Get out there and keep on gwenting.